Welcome back to my channel. I am Rudy and I know I clicked on this video, so I'm not going to keep this too long, just very short and sweet. However, some quick background. You obviously want to see how I make my study charts. Well, why do I make charts? So I am a full-time doctoral student. I am going into my 4th year and last year of my Doctor of Pharmacy program. I'm also doing my Master's of Public Health at the same time here in Atlanta. So that's why I make charts. I have been in didactic in-class learning for the last 3 years. I actually am coming up with my last week of classes right now, and yeah, charts have been kind of like my go-to for the last 3 years. There are some classes I don't make charts for, or like some topics I don't make charts for, but if I look back on the last 3 years of didactic learning, charts are definitely my go-to. Like, it's just something about PowerPoints that my brain just does not process, especially once you start getting towards the like 100 plus slide sets. I'm just like, yep, no, I can't do this. So I typically just turn that 150 slide set into a 4 or 5 page chart because I just prefer something quick and beautiful to look at versus 5 million slides with like pictures and stuff. I love pictures, granted, but I don't like when there's like only one picture on this slide and stuff. Like, I don't get that. Or when there's like two sentences on one slide. Really? So this is gonna be how I make my study charts. So to preface this, I do annotate my PowerPoints in class. So back in my first year, I did try to be kind of like proactive, multitasking, and try to make a chart while annotating in class. Sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't. And that was just kind of like me trying to do too much. But what has worked out lately over the last 2.5 years since I've learned that is that I need to actually annotate my PowerPoint in class, listen live, all that stuff, you know, highlight whatever I want, etc. And then I make the chart later on. It kind of serves as like one form of studying, and then of course the next form of studying after that is when I actually annotate the chart on my iPad when I need to, if I need to re-listen to the lecture, or if I use like a classmate's note cards and I try to answer the note cards, and when I get something wrong, I like annotate it on my study guide, or like I will highlight on my study guide, which is my chart, extra things that are important that I didn't highlight before. So just want to preface with that, and let's get into the video.
Alright y'all, so I typically start with my actual annotated PowerPoint. So back in first year, I used to try to make my charts at the same time, but lately I just found that annotating my PowerPoint live in class and then making the chart afterwards helps me a lot more. So once I've pulled up my PowerPoint, I typically pull up a Word document. I personally like to do landscape, and I typically make mine a tabloid size, which is 11 by 17, and I typically do narrow margins. I typically use this size because I typically annotate these on my iPad. Like, I never print these out. I always annotate on my iPad. Once I'm ready to add the table, I typically go like 8 by 6. Of course, I basically customize my table throughout the entire process, but that's typically what I start with. I also go ahead and merge that first line to add the topic of the chart. So the specific one is breast cancer. So I'll go ahead and make that title page, and then I really start getting into the editing. Oh, lately I've been obsessed with this font. It's called like Modern Love Caps. I'm obsessed with it. Like, if you're in my class and you've had my charts in the last 6 months, this is literally the only font I use. Alright, so now we're moving into actually adding in the content. So like I said, I annotate my PowerPoint live in class, and this helps a lot because I'm able to type in notes, and then basically I can just copy and paste what I typed out and what my professor has into my actual chart. I cannot explain how much time this saves, you guys. I used to try to like annotate my PowerPoint on my iPad sometimes, but then I'd be like, oh dang, I wanted to make a chart, and then you basically have to type in every single slide. But annotating on your iPad, on your in your actual PowerPoint, and then copying and pasting everything just like saves me at minimum 2 hours. And then you're able to like go ahead and highlight things, insert in colors. It's just amazing. So a lot of this is going to be copy and pasting. You see here, I just added a top row above what I just pasted, just so I can make titles of the different slides I'm about to add in. So I just added a title for Epi. I am making a large title crossing over 4 cells for risk factors, because as you see, I'm going to kind of like coagulate 4 slides of risk factors into one big topic section on this chart. That's another reason why I really enjoy charts. But yeah, a lot of copy and pasting and formatting, so I'm gonna shut up now. Just a quick note while I'm editing throughout this time, so you will notice that I'm going back and forth between dual screen and just like having one main screen. I am recording this actually on my 16-inch MacBook Pro because I actually was at work when I made this chart. I had some downtime between patients and I was able to do that, but typically I would just edit this at home, and I have a 27-inch curved monitor that I would keep the chart on, and then I would pull the power up on my MacBook. But just wanted to make that a note as to why you see me going back and forth. Something else I enjoy incorporating into my charts is actual kind of like flow charts or any kind of graphics we may use in class, because why not? Especially because this really helps me with my learning. I love seeing things like kind of drawn out or, you know, kind of in a flow chart. So I do try my best to kind of incorporate these things into my charts. So you'll notice me trying to, like, you know, format things throughout here. At one point, I think I go ahead and make a complete separate page of pictures and stuff, but I do try my best to incorporate as many charts, flow charts, any kind of graphics my professors use into my charts. Oftentimes when you're making these charts, if you actually do take your time, you will notice that you might have to kind of like remodel your cells or, you know, change up the flow of things. So like here I had diagnosis and pathology underneath each other because I figured there were a few more slides that I could put to the right, but that kind of ended up being the end of kind of like the introductory parts of breast cancer. So I figured it might look better just on one complete row. So I just kind of remodeled those cells and made one big row, extended clinical presentation, and now we have one complete row, and I can just move on to the next row of being a completely different introduction section, or just moving into, I think, the subtypes of breast cancer or something, but this just ended up working a lot better based on the flow of my slides. As I mentioned, when I'm creating my chart, I start out with 8x6, but obviously 8x6 is not going to be the entire chart. So just to add another row, I typically just do the add row function, and then I just completely tab over until I get to, you know, half the page. And keep in mind, these all will change because I'm going to format them differently, but that's just how you quickly add a few rows in your chart. Just as I noticed earlier with the risk factors, I noticed that I have a few slides related to the HER2, so I just went ahead and made one long title slide so that I can add subtopics like the HER2 status or HER2 subtypes, etc. So really, this is probably the last important slide that can be included on this first page of the chart. So what I typically do is I will black out the rest of the chart so that I can start freshly on the next page, including important stuff. So I'll go ahead and like change all the fonts in this chart and basically prepare myself to start the next page. As I mentioned earlier, I really do try to keep as many flow charts or pictures as possible, and the nice part about doing this in an actual PowerPoint is that I can kind of like rearrange my notes I've taken on my PowerPoint so that I can actually keep the pictures. So typically I probably would have just like copied and pasted this, all the words into the chart, but that would take up a lot of room. So here I'm just going to re-edit how I did the notes in the flow chart. The red are my personal notes. Just put that underneath the intended section, and then I'm just going to copy the picture into my actual chart. And this is one of the moments where I'm so glad I was recording, because you know how I mentioned earlier that like I try to keep the pictures and I try to reformat, but sometimes it just don't work in chart form. So this is a good example of how I just kind of created this one-off page of a bunch of the flow charts and pictures that are coming up in the next few slides. And I just kind of created its own little page, and I just did something so that I can still keep it in the format that I prefer to study in, which is typically not PowerPoint. I don't know what it is. My brain does not process PowerPoints. I legit hate them. I love creating them and presenting, but I hate studying them. So charts and just like these one-off flow pages just really help me a lot. So you'll see how I'm trying to make it work with making a bunch of these pictures into the chart, but it just doesn't work. So I just delete that whole second chart and I make this cute little one-off page. So you will note that I do indeed delete the slide as I have added it into my PowerPoint. I don't know what it is, but whenever I keep the slides and stuff, I kind of get like confused, but I typically delete the slides as I go, and then at the end I hit don't save, and obviously that way it doesn't save my 0 slide PowerPoint, but it will save the original like I think 70 slide PowerPoint, and that way I have it to go back to in case there is something that I forgot to add over. And here is the final product of my one-off page. The slides that were coming after the first part of the chart were literally just a bunch of pictures with some side notes. So I just turned into this one big page, and while it works for my brain, I totally understand it doesn't work for everyone else, but I do typically will like share these PowerPoints with my classmates. So I try to add arrows to things that like correlate with each other, but when you are studying, it definitely makes sense as you go through, like, if you're re-listening to the lecture or you're going through a note card set, you will understand the flow. But I get to like the blind eye, this may look just like a whole lot of crap. So I do try to add arrows and stuff, but yeah, this is what I was talking about with like sometimes pictures just don't work in charts. They just work off better as a little one-off page. So now I'm starting a second page of charts, moving on to like further into the lecture, but you guys have kind of like got the gist of like how I create the chart, editing and formatting, so I'm just going to shut up and let you enjoy my work. Alright guys, I have officially completed my chart. Obviously I wasn't going to show you guys me making the last page because it's just the same as me making all these other pages, but I have gone ahead and edited the last few pages. This is my one-off page, and now I just need to edit the first page, which was the introduction section. So I will quickly show you guys that. Just as I've done with the two previous pages that are edited, I try to basically group together sections by color. So here there are 4 columns of risk factors. I want those all to be green. Epidemiology is orange by itself. Screening is going to be a cute yellow, but you get the gist. I am grouping things by color. I highlight things that are super important that we were mentioned in lecture. I try to make those red, bolded, and under highlighted in yellow. I just try to make things stand out. As I mentioned earlier, I do annotate these on my iPad. So even if everything that's not important is highlighted and bolded and in red, they will get that done during my annotation when I go back and like re-listen to sections that I might not understand completely, or if I decide to watch like some review videos on YouTube, then I'll add in notes. Once everything is done, I typically save it as a PDF and I export it to my iPad, and that is how I typically am able to annotate in my GoodNotes app. I triple check, you know, to make sure like the margins and stuff are fine before I add it into GoodNotes, just in case I need to go back and edit something, but this is the final product. And as I continue to make my chart study guides for all of the lectures that will be included in my upcoming exam, I add them all into GoodNotes. So this is the last page of breast cancer, and I'm moving on to prostate cancer. It's Saturday when I'm voice recording this, so I've already made prostate cancer, and now it's time for me to just basically annotate my PowerPoints and go through them.
So I really hope this video was exactly what you're looking for and you clicked on it, or that I was able to provide something to help you along the lines when it comes to your studying or making charts yourself. If you did like this video, go ahead and give it a like below. and subscribe, and I will see you guys next week. And literally when I say that, like next week I will be a 4th year doctoral student, y'all. I will be going on rotations in exactly 2 weeks, and I'm just like so excited for the content coming up. I just can't wait. But like and subscribe below, and I love you. Bye.